It's Inauguration Week. Donald Trump is sworn in as the 45th President of the United States. We'll discuss the challenges and the agenda for the first 100 days with Washington Times columnist Mercedes Schlapp. And later, the 45th President spoke with me shortly before he won election, sharing his thoughts on faith and his vision for the country. We'll share that with you. And this week we lost best-selling author, the Oscar-winning screenwriter of The Exorcist, and a dear friend. We'll remember William Peter Blatty. The World Over begins right now.
Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. Mercedes Schlapp, our interview with the 45th President of the U.S. and a tribute to the late William Peter Blatty are all straight ahead. If you'd like to comment on tonight's show, you can send me a tweet at Raymond Arroyo, or you can drop us an email at worldover@ewtn.com. Let's get started. Here's the brief news from the world over this week. America's new president, Donald J. Trump, is finally assuming his office. The incoming president and his family arrived in D.C. on Thursday to joyous crowds at Joint Base Andrews and outside the Trump International Hotel, just down the street from the White House. Trump appeared at the inaugural concert at the Lincoln Memorial. Actor Jon Voight, Lee Greenwood, and country star Toby Keith headlined the festivities. Donald J. Trump was sworn into office during the 58th inaugural on Friday. He stressed the need for unity and promised to advance a bold agenda in the days ahead.
We assembled here today are issuing a new decree to be heard in every city, in every foreign capital, and in every hall of power. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. From this day forward, it's going to be only America first. America first. In America, we understand that a nation is only living as long as it is striving. We will no longer accept politicians who are all talk and no action, constantly complaining but never doing anything about it. A new national pride will stir our souls, lift our sights, and heal our divisions. It's time to remember that old wisdom our soldiers will never forget, that whether we are black or brown or white, we all bleed the same red blood of patriots. Your voice, your hopes, and your dreams will define our American destiny. And your courage and goodness and love will forever guide us along the way. Together, we will make America strong again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again. Thank you.
And President Barack Obama stepped up to the White House press podium for the last time on Wednesday. Fielding questions from a crush of journalists, Obama touched on an array of issues, foreign and domestic. But after 8 difficult years in office, the president suggested he's eager to step away from the political spotlight, at least for now.
It's important for me to take some time to process this amazing experience that we've gone through. I want to do some writing. I want to be quiet a little bit and not hear myself talk so darn much. I want to spend precious time with my girls. So those are my priorities this year. But as I said before, I'm still a citizen.
In spite of that promise, Obama also said that he would speak out as an ex-president if Donald Trump violates, quote, core principles of America. He is the first president to make such a pledge before leaving office. More on Presidents Obama and Trump later in the show. Elsewhere, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met with Pope Francis at the Vatican to open the first Palestinian embassy to the Holy See. Abbas commended the Pope for his support for the embassy, calling it a sign of the Pope's love of Palestinians and peace. The two met privately for about 20 minutes. According to a Vatican statement, they discussed the peace process between Israel and Palestine and expressed hope for a return of direct negotiations between the two parties. While inaugurating the Palestinians' new embassy to the Holy See, Abbas repeated his warnings that Mideast peace talks would suffer if the Trump administration went ahead with the opening of a new U.S. embassy in Jerusalem. And British Prime Minister Theresa May detailed in a speech on Tuesday her plans for Britain's exit from the European Union, or Brexit. A majority of Britons cast votes in an historic referendum to leave the single EU market. The Prime Minister said that while her country is not leaving Europe, it is leaving the EU.
Not partial membership of the European Union, associate membership of the European Union, or anything that leaves us half in, half out. We do not seek to adopt a model already enjoyed by other countries. We do not seek to hold on to bits of membership as we leave. No, the United Kingdom is leaving the European Union, and my job is to get the right deal for Britain as we do.
Negotiations to exit the EU are due to start at the end of March, and the final deal will be ratified by the British Parliament. And the row between the Vatican and the Sovereign Military Order of Malta continues as Rome reaffirms its decision to continue its investigation of the order. The group is locked in a tug-of-war with the Vatican after the Pope established a commission to investigate Malta's dismissal of its Grand Chancellor for his alleged involvement in the distribution of condoms through Malta's charitable arm. The Knights of Malta continue to insist that they are a sovereign entity and the dismissal is an internal matter. The order's Grand Master Fra Matthew Festing is also claiming that the Vatican Commission is compromised, since 3 members are reportedly tied to a fund that has financial links with Malta in excess of $100 million. The Vatican on Tuesday rejected the attempts to discredit its investigation, reaffirming its confidence in the Papal Commission as it investigates the, quote, present crisis of the order. And the controversy over Amoris Laetitia rolls on. Malta's Archbishop Charles Schiciluna has defended implementation of guidelines published by the island nation's bishops, even though those guidelines challenge existing Vatican directives. Responding to the charge that the bishops were breaking with church teaching on divorced and remarried Catholics receiving the Eucharist, Archbishop Schiciluna said their guidelines make constant references to a discernment process that has to take place and that pastors should not be lax in guiding people through the process. Now, here's what the Malta document actually says. If, as a result of the process of discernment, undertaken with humility, discretion, and love for the Church and her teaching, in a sincere search for God's will and a desire to make a more perfect response to it, a separated or divorced person who is living in a new relationship manages with an informed and enlightened conscience to acknowledge and believe that he or she are at peace with God, he or she cannot be precluded from participating in the sacraments of reconciliation and the Eucharist, end quote. But in 1994, the Congregation for the Doctrine of Faith told the Church's bishops in a letter entitled Concerning the Reception of Holy Communion by the Divorced and Remarried Members of the Faithful, quote, the mistaken conviction of a divorced and remarried person that he may receive Holy Communion normally presupposes that personal conscience is considered in the final analysis to be able, on the basis of one's own convictions, to come to a decision about the existence or absence of a previous marriage and the value of the new union. However, such a position is inadmissible. American canon law expert Edward Peters of Sacred Heart Major Seminary in Detroit says the bishops of Malta have created a Maltese disaster. He claims their guidelines permit and invite Catholics to commit a number of gravely evil acts. For his part, Archbishop Schiciluna stressed that the purpose of the Malta guidelines was to carry out the pastoral approach recommended by Pope Francis in Amoris Laetitia. Meanwhile, another of the 4 cardinals asking Pope Francis for clarity about the reception of communion for divorced and civilly remarried Catholics spoke out this week. In an interview with an Italian daily, Cardinal Carlo Caffarra said that in the wake of Amoris Laetitia, only a blind man could deny that there is great confusion, uncertainty, and insecurity in the Church. Caffarra went on to say that the only way to get to the bottom of the confusion would be to, quote, ask the author of the text, meaning the Pope. Cardinal Caffarra also rejected the argument by some that allowing divorced and remarried Catholics communion would be a development of doctrine. He said, there is no evolution where there is contradiction. And it appears that portions of Amoris Laetitia are not even the Pope's own words. Sections of the exhortation, it has been discovered, have been published before, 20 years ago, in an article written by a close associate of Pope Francis. Catholic University ethics professor Michael Pakaluk, writing for Crux, reveals that sections of Amoris Laetitia were taken nearly verbatim from a 1995 essay by Argentine Archbishop Victor Manuel Fernandez. Now, Fernandez is a well-known advisor to Pope Francis and is believed to have ghostwritten the papal encyclical Laudato Si. According to Pakaluk, the use of material raises ethical questions about whether those borrowed passages in Amoris Laetitia are to be considered church teaching or merely the thoughts of a papal ghostwriter. And as the fruits of the most recent synod remain in dispute, the Vatican has released the preparatory document for the next Synod of Bishops, set to take place in October of 2018. The Synod's theme, Young People, the Faith, and Vocational Discernment. In an open letter to the world's youth, Pope Francis asks that young people listen to God's call in the future. Cardinal Lorenzo Baldisseri, the secretary of the Synod of Bishops, emphasized the importance of including young people in the Synod prep. 2 students were featured at the press conference announcing the release. They spoke of their hope for a, quote, younger, fresher church. The preparatory document will now be circulated among the world's bishops for comment, and a website will be debuting in March, allowing the world's young people to contribute their ideas to the synodal process. And to commemorate the 500th anniversary of the Protestant Reformation this year, the Vatican will issue a postage stamp featuring Martin Luther. The Vatican usually issues stamps and coins to mark papal trips, holy years, or to commemorate saints. Martin Luther sparked the Reformation with his 95 Theses in 1517, protesting what he believed were abuses committed by the Church, including the selling of indulgences. Speaking to a group of Lutheran pilgrims earlier this week, Pope Francis explained that Luther's intention, quote, was to renew the Church, not divide her. Pope Leo X declared Martin Luther a heretic nearly 500 years ago. And I am amazed by the reaction of early readers and reviewers, including Kirkus, to the second book in the Will Wilder series from Random House. Will Wilder, The Lost Staff of Wonders, hits bookstores on March 7th. It is my follow-up to the first Will Wilder book, but you can pre-order now at Amazon.com, EWTNRC.com, Barnes & Noble, and your local independent bookstore. The first book, Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls, will be available in paperback and hardback on March 7th. For a limited time, if you pre-order the book now and send me a receipt or confirmation of purchase, I'll send you a signed book plate and a limited edition bookmark. Email me at Raymond@RaymondArroyo.com for your signed bookmark, or book plate rather, and bookmark. Write Will Wilder 2 in the subject line. Be sure to include your address, and we'll send those goodies right out to you. You don't want to miss this second book. It's a lot of fun. When we return, it's inauguration weekend as Donald Trump becomes the next president of the United States. We'll discuss the mood here in D.C. and the agenda with Fox News contributor Mercedes Schlapp. The world over continues in a moment. Stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over. As Donald Trump assumes the presidency, what are his priorities and how might they be received on Capitol Hill? To discuss this and much more, I'm joined by the Washington Times columnist and Fox News contributor, Mercedes SCHLAPP.
It's
Mercedes,
great to be here.
Great to have you back.
Hi, May.
Well, big inauguration week. It's been a different type of inauguration. I mean, the feeling of it. You and I witnessed a number of these.
Right.
How is this one different?
Maybe because we're getting older, so we're becoming more skeptical.
For shame.
No, I think there's the city is filled with a mix of excitement and tension. So you're walking through the streets, and you're definitely running into the "Make America Great Again" red hat supporters. You could see that they're just so thrilled to be in the nation's capital. However, there's the other side of it. You're talking. Thousands of protesters, some of them being led by Hollywood elitist Michael Moore and several other actors. And so there is this sense of the division that I think is being experienced within our nation, especially with those who really are having a hard time accepting the fact that Donald Trump will be sworn in Friday and will be the next president of the United States.
Yeah. I want to share this with you. In a press conference earlier on Thursday, Pence noted that the transition team had come in on time and under budget, Trump style. Watch this.
I'm especially pleased, I know the president-elect is especially pleased, that we're wrapping up this transition on schedule and under budget. We will actually return some 20% of taxpayer funding back to the U.S. Treasury, and that is just exactly in keeping with the president-elect's expectations.
Again, we kind of see this, routine kicking in where you have companies investing in the U.S. again, and now they're coming in under budget. What does this mean?
There's definitely a change in Washington where politics will no longer be stale, where the way federal bureaucracy has worked in the past, there could be substantial change. Now, it will be interesting how the bureaucracy will resist these changes. But I mean, Donald Trump today and his team, they announced that they're going to be cutting, they're going to have significant federal spending cuts in discretionary funds in several programs through different departments like the Commerce Department, Energy Department, try to cut duplicative programs. It's going to be a whirlwind. And I don't know if Washington is necessarily ready for this type of change that's coming their way.
Okay, you brought it up. There was a Hill report today, and it basically says they're going to shrink commerce and energy. The State Department would be cut back. Certain programs in justice would be cut. And then they're talking about the privatization of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and the elimination of the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities. Wise move or too much?
No, I think we got to understand the Donald Trump phenomenon. First of all, we know that Republican presidents in the past have always tried to shrink government. George W. Bush had tried to push that back then, and guess what? He grew government. I think that there's a reality that the president is going to face, which is the fact that you are going to submit a budget to Congress, and then guess what, Raymond? Congress comes back.
Sends it back to you.
And what's going to be interesting is that then you can see the infighting where the conservative Republicans will be more in line with Donald Trump. The moderate Republicans might stand with the Democrats and say, wait a second, this is too much cutting of the federal budget. So I think it's going to be we're going to go back to the negotiating table, and that is exactly where, if anyone can shrink the government, it will be Donald Trump.
Okay. Trump's press secretary, Sean Spicer, held his first press conference since just before the inauguration, and he accused the Democrats of not working to ensure continuity of government regarding confirming Trump's cabinet picks. Watch.
I think what's a shame right now is to see some of those individuals who we would call consensus candidates, people who they didn't even find a problem with, people like Secretary Elaine Chao, Ben Carson, Nikki Haley, suddenly not be part of Senator Schumer's list that he will work with us to get done on day one. And I think that it really speaks volumes that the Democratic leadership is not working with us to ensure a continuity of government.
What's happening?
Well, interestingly enough, when it was President Obama and he made his cabinet picks, 7 of his cabinet nominees were confirmed day one. The Democrats are dragging their feet. They're blaming it on the ethics office by not having all the paperwork in. I mean, have you seen those hearings 4 to 5 hours of brutal questioning, trying to figure out a way to in any way take out any of these cabinet nominees. So for right now, the Democrats are using a stalling tactic, which is not going to work because these cabinet nominees are going to get confirmed.
Now, 60 Democratic members plus are refusing to attend the inaugural. They're not going to be there. They're not there. Your thoughts on what this does to the atmosphere here in D.C., particularly on the Hill? Does this kind of just solidify this blind opposition, ideological opposition to the new president?
Well, I think I can find 60 Trump supporters who would love those seats. But I find it very unfortunate because, as we know, one of the symbolic moves in this nation is the fact that you do have the peaceful transfer of power. You may completely disagree with the candidate or the president-elect, but I think that for the sake of America, for the sake of showing some sort of unity, you might disagree on him on policy or you might not like the guy, but I think that it's a matter of being there to support this peaceful transfer of power, and that's why I'm very disappointed with the direction that these Democrats have taken.
Well, let's talk about the former president, Barack Obama, who is in Washington, D.C. the first time in 100 years we've had a president stay behind in D.C. Your thoughts on what that might portend? I mean, he's not going to go quietly into that good night. He's even said, look, if as a citizen I see Donald Trump moving in a direction that's out of line with our values, I'm going to speak up.
President Obama is waiting till the very last second or millisecond to leave the White House. Just today, he announced that he was commuting sentences for additional prisoners. He's trying to move forward. He actually funded like a United Nations program today. I mean, till the very last minute, Raymond, he's not giving up the power that easily. And the one thing about this president, unlike President George W. Bush, who decided he was going to go paint these beautiful oil paintings, that is not the case with Obama. He recognizes the fact that his party is in disarray. He feels that he was the quote-unquote savior of the Democratic Party back in the day, and he's going to stay focused on recruiting candidates, on ensuring that the Democrats can come together as a nation, and I think that as a party. So I think that he's going to stay in a very active role in the Democratic Party and will be a very vocal opponent of President-elect Trump.
What do you think of this commuting the sentence of Bradley, now Chelsea Manning, this private who leaked 750,000 documents that really endangered the lives of informants as well as our own people in the field? He had a 35-year sentence, or no, she had calling he, she, I can't follow it all.
Right.
But the private Manning had a 35-year sentence. He only served 7 of those years. Your thoughts?
I think that it's a big mistake on the part of President Obama, someone who obviously defended Hillary Clinton on her mishandling of classified emails. Here you have the case of, for example, Manning giving information to WikiLeaks in such a way that did endanger the lives of our servicemen and women, and those are. That's what Mike Pence called, and Senator Tom Cotton, a traitor. Yeah. And I think that there are other people. I understand those that with the drug sentencing that maybe were too harsh, and they've done rehabilitation. But this is a case of national security and a breach of our national security because of this private. And I almost feel that it was a political move for the LGBTQ community, where because he was transgender, that it was the opportunity to give them something. That's the way this president functions. He functions based on identity, whether it's color, race, gender, and it makes you question if that was part of his reasoning to shorten the sentence.
I want to shift gears for a moment, talk about something that seems frivolous, but it does have, I think, some impact. Madame Tussauds, the world-renowned wax museum, unveiled their image of Donald Trump this week. Now, I'm going to put this on the screen for you just so you can see it. It is a less than flattering, I think, image of the new president. He's scowling. He's looking off to the side. I mean, we'll put up the pictures of President Obama and Richard Nixon that, frankly, look better than Trump. Is this a dig, do you think? Yet
I
another?
don't know, but it definitely it'll keep the wax museum a popular place because individuals might want to go in and just tell the difference between the Obama and the Trump wax figures.
Even if he's scowling at you.
Oh. But he's got that look. You know, it can be very it could be very sweet, but at the same time, you know, the Trump tough look.
Well,
it's a tough guy look.
But you've seen him smile. I just thought it's the most unflattering moment. I mean, any of us, and we've seen still shots of us on television.
Right.
You know, they can always get you. That's the worst thing you want. That's the last image you want in a wax,
Right.
you know, effigy. And yet, here it is. I felt bad when I saw it. Now, you and your husband, Matt, are doing a new XM show, XM Sirius show.
Right.
The Road to CPAC.
That's right.
This is a short-term show, sort of like a limited series on Netflix.
It is like a, it's like Downton Abbey.
There you're the Downton Abbey
yes, the Downton
of
Abbey.
XM series. You had Steve Bannon, who really hasn't done any interviews on your show. What did he tell you?
Steve Bannon spoke about where Trump's heart is, which is that of the working class, which is his understanding of where the nation was headed, in the sense that there were those individuals who felt left behind in this political process, in this elitist process, and he spoke about the importance of Trump recognizing that and being able to bring those people to support him. And so it was a fascinating conversation. One thing about Steve Bannon, he's actually very humble. He doesn't do a lot of press, but he understands clearly why America's so exceptional, why we have to protect our borders, why we need to ensure that we have laws in place to ensure who's coming in and out of our country,
right.
and also where we could help the working class in terms of improving their lives from an economic standpoint.
What does he and what do you think are going to be the bloodiest battles of these first 100 days? What's going to be the ugliest moment, do you think?
Well, I think Obamacare is going to be the dismantling of Obamacare, figuring out the replacement plan, because I think what you're going to find is that Trump is going to push Congress hard. He wants them to repeal and replace simultaneously, and what we're seeing is that the Republicans are not necessarily agreeing on how exactly they're going to replace Obamacare, although they've had 7 years to think about it. So I think that's going to be battle number one, and the fact that he is going to be like the CEO coming in and saying, we need this done by this date. So you're going to see these congressional staffers working probably like 24 hours a day.
Oh, par for the course for them.
Exactly.
We're getting our
no
money's
more
worth.
of these free sessions where you take off a week or two.
No more vacations.
Exactly.
Just work for the first 100 days.
Right.
As was consistent with his predecessors, President Trump went to St. John's on the Hill, or just by the White House,
right.
before his inauguration. There was an interfaith prayer service before his inauguration, and then the day following on Saturday, there's another prayer service at the National Cathedral. The importance of faith here. Why do that in a secular republic?
Well, our founding fathers were men of God. I mean, they really were. And I think that you find that not only in our traditions, but when you look at Trump himself, even when he was on the campaign trail, there were plenty of Christians, Catholics who would not only pray for him, but prayed over him, put their hands over him, and basically pray for this election and for his success. And I think that is something that is so part of our tradition as a nation. Mm-hmm. And I think, it is about one nation under God. It is such a powerful message that we need to continue to protect that message throughout our nation, because we are a people of faith. And I think it's important that we keep those traditions because of the fact that I do believe that God really has blessed America.
Thank you, Mercedes. We will check in with you in the days ahead. You can catch Mercedes along with her husband, Matt, on their new radio show, The Road to CPAC, Saturdays at 9 to 10 a.m. on SiriusXM, channel 125. When we return, I interviewed the new president shortly before he won election, my exclusive interview with Donald J. Trump. When we return, stay right there.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. Just before his victorious election, I conducted an exclusive interview with President Donald Trump. It is instructive to look back on just what he said about health care reform, immigration, his faith, and much more. On the occasion of his inauguration, here is my big league interview with the 45th President of the United States. Watch.
Mr. Trump, thanks for the time.
Thank you.
I want to start with your mother, Mary Trump, who we hear very little about. But you said she had a flair for the dramatic. What do you see in yourself that you saw in her?
Maybe that. She was a terrific woman, beautiful woman. She was born in Scotland, came here at 19 years of age, met my father. They got married. They were married for 63 years or something. They had a great marriage. It was very beautiful, but she was a very, very smart woman. And she was a very religious woman, actually.
I want to read something Newt Gingrich recently said about you. He said, he is a transformational figure, but one that reacts very intensely, almost uncontrollably, to anything that attacks his own sense of integrity. Do you regret some of the reactions you've made over this election season, and perhaps the way you phrased those reactions?
Well, you know, I started with 17 people, and it was a very, very nasty primary, and they were nasty to me. You know, people think I was nasty, but they were nasty to me, and I ended up winning. But no, look, you can't go back. You have to look forward. This was a nasty campaign, and, you know, people don't mention, but they were nasty to me. I think in many cases they were nastier to me than I was to them.
And as a president, you wouldn't react that way?
No, I don't think so. It depends. You react different way for different people. These were 17 people coming at me from every angle, and you know, I hit them hard. Most of them are now endorsing me. Some of them dishonored the pledge. They signed a pledge, and they dishonored the pledge, and they'll have to live with that. But most of them have endorsed me.
I want to get into some issues.
Okay.
You weren't always pro-life, but you now are determinedly and decidedly pro-life.
I am pro-life.
You said you're going to appoint judges who are pro-life.
Right.
You're very concerned about the late-term abortions. What was the moment that changed your thinking, your heart on this?
Well, there were a number of moments, but one was a couple that I know very, very well. And you had a strong pro-life, and you had a strong pro-choice. And they argued over, the mother was pregnant. They argued over the child. One, I won't get into specifics, but one wanted to abort, and the other said, we can't do that, we're not going to do that. Anyway, they had the baby, it's a long time ago, and the baby is such a magnificent person, who I know, a magnificent person. And the person that was actually pro-choice is now pro-life because of it. And it had a big effect on me. But I've seen other examples similar to that, but I've seen other examples. So
it was a personal change.
It was a personal change. And, you know, Ronald Reagan made that personal change, too. Right. Many people have made the personal change. I mean, some make the personal change the other way also.
Right, right.
But I made the personal change, and I'm very happy with it.
Tell me about religious liberty. I know this has become a growing concern for you, particularly for so many faith-based voters and people who are in nonprofits, religious service people, whether it's the Little Sisters of the Poor or you know, these private businesses who are religiously motivated. They feel this Obamacare mandate, which demands contraceptive and abortifacient services as part of insurance, is intrusive. What would you do as president?
Well, let me tell you, religious liberty itself, take it in the biggest picture, is in tremendous trouble, okay? I mean, religious liberty in this country is in tremendous trouble.
You mean expression of religion?
I'm talking expression, and I'm talking anything else you want to talk about. People that are faith-based are not having, you know, they're just not having, they're not being accepted. It's almost like they're not being accepted in our country anymore. Obama has been a disaster in terms of religious liberty. And one of the things I'm very proud of, I was with pastors, ministers, priests, rabbis, on numerous occasions, large numbers. And at the first meeting, I could see I had tremendous support, like beyond. And I said, when are you going to endorse me? And they said, we can't do that. And I said, why can't you do that? They said, we're not allowed to do that. If we did that, we'd lose our tax-exempt status. And I said, why is that? And they told me about the Johnson Amendment, 1954. And I thought about it for a month, and we had a meeting again, 56 different pastors, ministers, et cetera. And I said, we're going to get rid of the Johnson Amendment because our pastors and ministers should have the right to go out and speak their minds. These are the people we respect. And they're actually precluded from speaking their mind. If they speak their mind, their whole tax-exempt status can be taken away.
Out from under them,
So we're getting rid. And I think it's one of the most important things that I'll be doing for the evangelicals and for religion. So I think it's very, very important. So we're going to get rid of the Johnson Amendment.
And what about Obamacare? The administration admitted these premiums are going to go up 25% on average, could be 50% in some markets. Given that, and this religious objection to the Obamacare mandate, what are you going to do as president?
Obamacare is killing our country. It's killing our jobs. It's a disaster. I've been saying it for a long time. I've been talking about it for a long time before it was even approved. Whether it's healthcare savings accounts, or, by the way, there are many things, but healthcare savings accounts are phenomenal. You have to break up the lines between the states so that we have competition. Once you create competition, those numbers will go so low, but you have to repeal and replace Obamacare. It's a disaster. And the number of 25%, Washington came out, say, I'm sorry to say your number's going up 25%. It's wrong. It's going up 50%, 60%, 70%, and next year it's going to go up again. It's going to get worse. And Hillary Clinton wants to keep Obamacare going, and people are going to be paying hundreds. I mean, when you really look at it, they'll be paying 150%. It doesn't work. It's no good on its face. It doesn't work. Never would have worked. Should have never been approved. It was approved by a lie. I mean, let's face it.
At the last presidential debate, Donald Trump was asked this question.
Do you make the same commitment that you will absolutely accept the result of this election?
I will look at it at the time. I'm not looking at anything now. I'll look at it at the time. I will tell you at the time. I'll keep you in suspense.
You mentioned Hillary Clinton. She is saying your unwillingness to accept the election results, which happened at the last debate, she says this poses a direct threat to our democracy. Does it?
Well, you know who said the same thing, and I won the last debate, according to everybody. I won it easily. But you know who it really said it pretty well was Obama. When he was running in his first election, they asked him the same question, and he talked about rigged elections and rigged everything else. Our system is rigged.
What do you mean when you say that specifically?
Whether it's through the media.
Not the electoral process.
Well, you know, Obama said it was. I mean, he said the electoral process is rigged. I mean, all you have to do is go back and look when he ran, when he first ran.
But are you worried about the counting of votes?
Well, if you look at research, certainly there's some of that going on. We can be babies and say it doesn't happen, but certainly if you look at Philadelphia, if you look at Chicago, if you look at St. Louis, if you look at Obama's statements from 8 years ago, take a look at his statements, what he said about it. I saw it last night. It was like incredible. He was far more outgoing as far as that's concerned than I am. But overall, what I'm really concerned about is the system is rigged, whether it's the media rigging the system. There's so many things wrong.
Well, I want to talk personally about you. When you pray, what do you pray for?
I don't want to talk to you about that. I mean, I pray. It's very personal to me. I'm a person of belief. But I certainly, you know, I pray for my family. I pray for our country.
Yeah.
But I don't want to talk to you about that. I think that's very personal.
Okay, between you and God.
It is between me and God, yes.
You're a Presbyterian, so I don't want to drag you into other realms. Do you have a favorite saint?
Well, I think that if you look, Mother Teresa, who's probably our newest, is great. And
incredible.
John Paul, Pope John Paul, I thought was terrific.
Why?
Because it had something special, had a special something. There was a warmth. There was a toughness, but there was a warmth that was incredible. So I certainly think Pope John Paul.
You have said this is a movement. You're the leader of a movement. Whether you win or lose, what are the issues that this party, the GOP, will have to contend with as part of that movement?
There are many issues. The biggest issue right now is the judges, Supreme Court judges, but Obamacare is a massive issue. The Republicans have to get rid of it. They've been unsuccessful in doing it. I will get rid of it, and I'll replace it with something much better and much less expensive for the people. Jobs have to stop leaving our country. Our military has to be rebuilt, and we need a, you know, it's been very depleted. The military has to be rebuilt. We have to take care of our vets. We have to protect our Second Amendment, which is under siege. And we have to have strong borders. Right now, people are pouring into our country. Drugs are pouring into our country. We have to stop the people and the drugs.
Now, Hillary Clinton says we need more of these Syrian refugees in. These people are suffering abroad. They need to come home, and they need to come here. And we as a country should be open to them. You would say what?
I would say she's crazy. I would say that it's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard. We have no idea. We're not vetting them properly. We have no idea. Are they ISIS? Are they not ISIS? Where are they coming from? Who they are? We're taking them in by the tens of thousands right now. And Hillary Clinton wants to upgrade that by 550%. I would say to you, it's crazy to be doing this, and I will stop it immediately. We will not have radical Islamic terrorists coming into our country, and some of them will be radical Islamic terrorists.
And then there is this. In appearance after appearance, there is one bit of Trump syntax that has created debate in households across America.
But we have to also get back, and we have to solve it big league and strongly. Someday, I believe that will be proven out
big league.
We are all suffering, and we're suffering big league.
We're going to win big league, believe me.
Okay, my final question. It is perhaps the most portentous. We've been seeing on social media, we've been seeing it in the New York Times, in USA Today. Are you saying big league or big league? And my guess is within, so there's money riding on this.
Well,
big league or big league?
Now, let me ask you, you're talking about for me?
When you're speaking on the podium and you say, this is...
I use big league.
I was
Good.
right.
Okay.
Big league, you've settled it.
Okay, thank you.
When we return, we remember the man who launched A Million Nightmares, the Oscar-winning author of The Exorcist, William Peter Blatty, who passed away last week at 89, the world over. Continues in a moment. Stay with us.
Now, once again, Raymond Arroyo.
Welcome back to The World Over Live. On January 12th, we lost a great American writer, and for me, a dear friend, William Peter Blatty. Bill Blatty passed away at the age of 89. He made his name as a comedy writer initially, who wrote A Shot in the Dark, considered to be the best of the Pink Panther movies. But it was his 1971 hit novel and the Academy Award-winning screenplay that would follow, The Exorcist, that would make him a household name. In 1973, the blockbuster movie directed by William Friedkin is still considered one of the scariest movies of all time. But for Blatty, it was an apostolic work. In his later life, the devastating loss of his teenage son, Peter, left a deep mark on him. Bill Blatty's last book, the memoir Finding Peter, a true story of the hand of providence and the evidence of life after death, was written in part to help him come to terms with that loss. I spoke with Bill a number of times on this program over the years. Here are some highlights of our conversations with the late, great William Peter Blatty. If you read about Bill Blatty in the media or you talk to people who've seen the book or watched the movie, the thing they'll tell you is, boy, that was the scariest thing I've ever encountered. Was that your intention when you wrote this book, to scare the pants off of people?
You know, this is why I'm here, right? That I am hauled out of my burrow every year at Halloween, as if I were some furless, aging, demonic Punxsutawney Phil. It just brings always a smile of amusement to my lips, because I will now make a humiliating admission. Please believe me that it's true. I have zero recollection, when writing the novel, The Exorcist, of any intention to frighten the reader in the slightest. I thought that which you may take, I suppose, as a mission of failure on a stupefying scale, but I thought I was writing a novel of faith, a thrilling, you know, disguised as a thrilling, suspenseful, supernatural detective story.
Yeah.
My intention was always apostolic.
Meaning what? What did you hope? What did you want people to take away from the book?
I wanted to strengthen their faith. This is the, if I may, the chronology. When I was either a sophomore or freshman at Georgetown University, I attended a lecture in Copley Hall on campus by a priest who had come from the Philippines, and he was talking about a reported apparition of the Blessed Virgin Mary to 3 little Philippine girls at Lipa in the Philippines, and these were always accompanied by a shower of rose petals bearing an imprint of the Blessed Mother. Very fine. But he had brought along a glass display case, put it up on the wall at the end of the lecture. We stood in line, you know, and took a look at it. The young man next to me, Tubby Wowie Carter, looked at it, and you know, there, on every petal, there was an imprint, and they were slightly different, but it was always the Blessed Mother. And he said, "Well, what are we waiting for?" I puzzled for weeks, if not months, about what Wowie Carter meant by that, and I finally realized he was saying, like the apostles after the resurrection, Let's run out into the streets and evangelize the world. Then the next year, as a junior, 1949, while in New Testament class, our teacher, Father Eugene Gallagher, started talking about a case of possession and exorcism going on at that time in the neighborhood. And he got a lot of the details wrong, you know. Nevertheless, I thought someday, if someone were able to thoroughly research this case, or demonic possession, and show that it's really genuine, I said, what a boost to the faith, what a help to those millions who were troubled by their faith.
There were a few key scenes that Mr. Blatty wanted in the final cut. You, Mr. Friedkin, decided to take them out. First, Bill, it's been...
First, Bill Blatty.
Let me go to Bill Blatty first, and then I want to get... Because there's particularly that scene between Karras and Father Marin when they come out of the exorcism and they're sitting on the steps.
Why this girl doesn't make sense.
I think the point is to make us despair. To see ourselves as animal and ugly. To reject the possibility that God could love us. Will you excuse me, Damien?
Why did you want that scene in there?
Well, it laid out the entire, my opinion, core of the film. And there was also a practical reason for it, which was, if you understand what this case of possession is all about, then you in the audience have a reason to not hate yourself for enjoying some of the most, you know, lurid and shocking content that is necessary in the film.
The movie comes out, The Exorcist. It is a global hit. Your family is now growing. And I want to fast forward to really a moment when you have your son, Peter. And from the very beginning, you write in the book, he was special from the beginning. You knew it.
Oh, he was extraordinary. You can go back to the age of 3, and you could see that there was something unearthly about Peter. At the age of 3, he said, among other things, he said, "Mommy, do you know why I came here?" Came here, notice phraseology. "No, sweetheart, why?" He said, "I came here to help people." He came to me one day and he said, "Daddy, how do you learn?" Same age. "Oh, books, experience." "Not how I learn." "Really?" "No. No, I learn from the sky. God teaches me." And then at the age of 5, it's not paranormal, but it tells you the depth of his soul. He approached his mother and he said, she wrote it down in the diary, "You know, Mommy, when God was making me, I was a little bit scared and a little bit sad, but then I saw you." And he remained that way. He was a larger-than-life personality. Yes, he was meant to help people, I think. The people were primarily me.
And you write in the book he had an encounter with drugs for a while, went to rehab,
sure.
Came out of it.
Christmas Eve, his girlfriend broke up with him, and that led to something like that.
And then at 17, he is
19.
He's down in the basement.
Down in the basement watching TV.
A game.
That morning, he had had his first shot of methadone. Thank God, because he didn't feel the pain. Julie went down to the den and found him sitting there with a TV remote in his hand. Very pleasant expression on his face. So there had been no pain. He was afflicted by viral myocarditis. It's extremely rare disorder that in which the immune system attacks the muscles of the heart. But because of the methadone, he felt absolutely nothing.
But you believe, and you write in the book, the story didn't stop there.
No.
And as you write in the introduction, at the very top of the book, you say, for those who have lost a loved one to that liar and fraud named death,
Right.
what have you seen, what evidence have you seen, as you suggest in the book, that Peter is still in communion with you?
8 years of incidents, most of them not terribly dramatic, a few of them very dramatic, each one of which could be explained as a coincidence, but in the context of 8 years, unremitting. It's been about a year since anything has shown up. It is Pete. May I give you one?
Yeah, give me an example.
One of the dramatic ones. Julie and I, after Pete passed, found we could not bear the hours after dinner, between after dinner and bedtime. So we started watching British TV and homicide series. And we're watching one of these one night. And one of the characters is a detective who has buried his wife, legitimately, in his backyard. And every night he gets drunk and sits on a bench and he talks to her. And on this night, he said, "Sarah, why don't you give me a sign? Why don't you turn on a light or something?" I instinctively turned to look at a photo of Pete on the fireplace mantle, and then up at this bank of lights in a chandelier, and no way. Within 10, I'll give it 15 seconds at the outside, Julie and I were turning to look at each other because a light source had appeared in the room. It was a halogen lamp on one of my filing cabinets. It stayed on 10, 12, 15 seconds, very steady, then went out. Well, of course, the next day I did the cynical number. I want so desperately to believe it was Pete that I have to eliminate every natural possibility. The halogen light is busted. It doesn't work anymore. Whatever he did to it, if he did something to it. And not that night, but the following night, we finished with TV. Julie picks up the cat, she could put her in the room, and I turn around to check for any late emails on my computer screen, and I see a light source bouncing around. And I turn around, and that four-globe chandelier, you had to imagine an invisible hand operating a dimmer switch, which this chandelier was on, doing this, going from total darkness, full illumination, very slowly down. Here again, Raymond, not once, not twice, but 3 times. I don't know what conclusion you draw from that, but the one I drew and continue to hold on to, it was Peter, in effect, saying, "Dad, do you need a building to fall on top of you?"
And you know, the skeptics reading this are going to say.
Oh, let me give them one.
The skeptics are going to say, Bill Blatty, you've got an electrical surge at the house. you got to get an electrician in to check.
Okay.
That's what this is. Okay,
but again, it's the continuation of them over 8 years. Now, here's another one of the dramatic ones, which I say were few.
And why do you think you're getting these signs?
He wants to reassure me that he is still with us. Pete had a heart, as big as this studio. And despite, my faith and belief in immortality, boy, I don't know where that was when I was walking around the basement swimming pool late at night for an hour just shouting Pete's name. Well, he heard that. And I believe he showed up. The other very dramatic one is similar in a way to the one the light. It's the tree. In November, I had seen little signs that I thought could be from Pete. And I was on the back deck and I looked out at a tree that one of Pete's classmates named Noah had planted in memory of Pete, because Pete saved his hide one time from a beating. And I said, "Okay, Pete, here's something. On my birthday, January 7th, I want to see buds on that tree. January 7th, you know where I was, first thing in the morning, down there. There were green shoots had emerged. I would love to be able to say that in time they turned into blossoms. No. Whatever Peter did to that tree had the same effect as what he did to the light. The tree died. And we tried planting others, and nothing will survive there. So it's a powerful mojo we must invoke with care.
So do you see this as Peter being a part of the communion of saints, reaching out to you?
What it is.
He trapped here? How do you interpret it?
It is the communion of saints. But why doesn't everybody have this experience? First of all, you know, I grieved the death of my mother, of Mama, almost certainly neurotically for 5 full years. With one possible exception, I didn't get any signs.
What is the message you want people to take away from reading this book and from hearing us together?
That we do live forever. That they should heed. There's a line of dialogue in a movie called The Orphanage by a psychic lady. She says, first you must believe, then you will see. And that is the truth of it. Why did I start seeing, I call them messages from Peter? Very good chance is because I believed it was possible, that it could be. And I want to assure any of your viewers who might have already read Finding Peter or might in the future, I swear to you, I did not exaggerate or invent a single word. Well, you know, witness, there are only maybe 3 or 4 really dramatic moments, and I think they all know that I can make up some pretty extraordinary dramatic moments if I want to, but I didn't because I bent over backwards to make sure the reader knows these are true.
He was a wonderful friend and such fun. Bill Blatty's memoir, Finding Peter, The True Story of the Hand of Providence and Evidence of Life After Death, is available online and at bookstores everywhere. Our prayers go out to Julie and the entire Blatty family. Rest in peace, dear Billy. You are already sorely missed. Well, that is all the time we have. Until next week, the show continues on Facebook and Twitter. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, and be sure to tune in next week. Fox News host Bret Baier is here to talk about the Trump inaugural and the agenda to come in his latest book. And Wisconsin Congressman Jim Sensenbrenner will discuss the latest from Capitol Hill. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo from Washington, D.C. Bye now.